Which positional group am I most excited about right now with this football team? Which one am I most worried about? We're going to rank them from the top to the bottom, everything in between on Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, where we are just here to try to make it a little more exciting and a little more enjoyable to be a Badgers fan. Thank you to everybody who's going to listen to this. Thank you for giving us a tiny bit of your day. It's the most important thing anyone has is time. And for you to join us on this, it means a lot to me. It's humbling. So thank you. Humbly and sincerely, it is so appreciated. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. Let's go. I nailed that ad read because you don't know, but I've done like 4 of these episodes. And I keep getting that ad read wrong for some reason, and it's good. It's nailed. Let's go. So let's talk about it. One of the things I wanted to do on this show was talk a little bit about we've been really chopping up practice reports, players that have stock up, stock down, reports on guys like Tretch and the linebackers and the quarterback battle, running backs. I wanted to kind of zoom out a little bit, right? You're very in the weeds when you're going through every practice report and breaking it down line by line. And you get little snippets of film, and it's like the Bigfoot footage where you're analyzing every microscopic pixel, trying to see every one-on-one you can get your hands on. I wanted to zoom out a little bit. Let's just take a look at the positions as a whole and rank them from what we are most comfortable with right now, heading into summer, heading into fall, and down to kind of what we're most worried about, plus kind of the ups, the good and the bad of each position, right? For the positions we're more worried about, what is the upside there? And for the positions where we feel really good about, what is the potential downside? So that's what this show is. Definitely in the comments, leave your rankings, positional groups from the top to the bottom. What are you most comfortable with as a Badger fan with this 2024 football team right now? Also knowing the freshmen that are coming in. And what are you most worried about? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start at the top. A lot of times on ranking shows, I start at the bottom and work my way up. On this one, we're just going to flip it up. We're going to flip that script. We're going to start at the top. We're going to talk about linebackers because that is this. I thought about doing inside and outside linebackers, but quite frankly, with the multiplicity of the Tressel scheme or the Fickell scheme, it's not like you're playing that base 3-4 defense that, a lot of us older fans, you grew up in teams played the 4-3 or the 3-4, right? And it was pretty simplistic in some ways. It was more hard-nosed, probably. Middle linebackers like Levon Kirkland were 255 pounds and would knock your block off, but it's much more multiple now, so I think it makes sense to combine linebackers. I also combine secondary, for the record. Linebackers I have at number 1. And the good, right? Why am I so excited about linebackers? I think it's depth, versatility, athleticism. I mean, you just go through the roster, right? You talk about Jaheim Thomas, Jake Chaney, Tackett Curtis, Sebastian Cheeks, Christian Allegro, Leon Lowery, Pius, Witz, Lafayette, Heiberger. Essentially, you can go 8, 9, 10 bodies and find something you really like about all of them. I think the other part of here that isn't talked about enough is it's the young guys coming in, right? The new players, the transfers. There's also a really nice mix of kind of established veterans on the team. Like Daryl Peterson's a really solid linebacker. I know he's maybe not the guy that you'd hoped he would be, or he was a big-time recruit, right? A 4-star recruit, basically destroyed records at his school, I believe, for sacks and tackles for loss. He hasn't been that guy in Madison, but he's a good edge setter. He's a very solid outside linebacker. He'll set the edge. He'll make some plays. He's really a great depth piece. And this unit has, I think, potential stars, right? In Tackett Curtis, in Jaheim Thomas. I think Leon Lowery and John Pius can make splash plays, but it also has depth in the guys like Daryl Peterson and Jake Chaney. It has young athletes in Allegro and Tommy Heiberger and Anelu Lafayette. There are just so many things potentially to like about this spot. So I have linebacker number 1. My potential cause of concern for linebacker is it is just a lot of new pieces, a lot of pieces coming in. How much of a learning curve will there be, right? How much of coaches keeping egos in check will there be, right? Part of being a coach now is ego management. It's roster management. It's making sure everyone's getting playing time. How do you mix and meld that? There's a ton of new bodies. It obviously might take a little bit of time for these new bodies to come in. Listen, it's first year in this system for for all these transfers, right? So that would be the concern, how long it might take to meld it all together. But I have linebacker number 1. Number 2, I have the DBs. Again, I was going to kind of break this out between cornerback and safety, but I put them together just because there are some players who are safety, but they're probably going to play nickel. I think it makes sense to put it together. I have DBs at number 2, and the main reason is you got 2 stars, Hunter Wohler and Rico Hallman. Ricardo Hallman, Hunter Wohler, those are 2 of your better players defensively. 2 of your better players on the team. Hunter Wohler is the best player on the team, in my opinion. I think he is a heat-seeking missile that's only going to get better in Mike Tressel's system in year 2. And then you look at the depth in the safety spot. You have big physical hitters, Kamoi Latu, Austin Brown, Braden Moore, Preston Zachman provides depth. At the cornerback spot, you have a really interesting mix of Rico is coming back as kind of the headliner there, but you have upperclassmen with Max Lofi, Nazir Forkran, Mac. You have some really interesting upperclassmen, real men in that group, but you have some crazy talented freshmen coming in with Lucas and Harper and Agard. And then you have the mix in the middle. I just think there is a great blend of high-end proven talent here, veteran leadership and experience, and really exciting high upside young talent. Also guys like Amari Snowden. I like another guy in here is JT Taylor. I think Justin Taylor, I think he has unique athletic skills. Jace Arnold's one of the fastest players on the team. It's just, to me, a really deep position with a great blend of high upside youth with experienced veterans and star power. So I have the DBs number 2 on this roster. I feel really good about it. The one concern I would have, again, we're doing this for every position, what we really like and what could go wrong. I still don't think we have maybe a dude to match up with the really elite boundary receivers. Rico can do that to some degree, but he is a little shorter. It just is what it is. Physically, if you're putting him out there on an island against an LSU type receiver or an Ohio State type receiver or a Penn State type receiver, the guys that are 6'2", 6'3", physical and run a 4.4, listen, there's not a lot of those corners in the world, but you got to get one. And I don't know if we have that on the roster right now. So that's the one spot I would say maybe a little pause for concern. I think Kamoi Latu and his inconsistency last year is a little pause for concern. There was tackling issues, but I thought he got better as the year went on. So I have DB's number 2. At number 3, I have the receivers. I think we probably jumped the gun a little bit last year on the receivers. We talked about this on the show, talking about how good they could be. This might be the year where a lot of that comes to fruition, right? Bryson Green, CJ Williams, those guys have another year in the system. Will Pauling was really good last year. You have one of the better slots. We've talked about Tretch as a potential upcoming star. I think he fits the mold of a guy to be incredibly excited about. So he's there. I think he's going to play a lot with Pauling. Both those guys on the field at the same time. That could cause a lot of issues. And then on the outside, you have a guy like Quincy Burrows. You have a guy like Vinny Anthony. You have a guy like CJ Williams or Bryson Green. I think there's untapped physical skills on the outside. Chris Brooks is another one. And then I think there's dynamic slot guys on the inside. And then you also have some young talent, Tretch, KBJ. So it's, again, to me, a really good mix of some veteran players that have physical skills, young players that are exciting, and a couple of potential star type players with Will Pauling. Tretch could be that guy. And I do think one of the outside guys takes another step up, whether that's Bryson Green, CJ Williams, whether it's Quincy Burrows. I think Quincy Burrows might be that guy this year that doesn't catch a ton of passes. I was alluding to this on a previous show. He might be the guy this year that doesn't catch a ton of passes, but averages like 19 yards per catch, right? Excuse me, has to take a drink of water. Averages like 19 yards per catch just because he's going to have a couple of those big back-breaking plays where he gets behind a safety, he gets behind the corner, and he hauls in a 60-yard bomb, a 50-yard bomb, where his physical skills and his skill set allows him to do that. So I have receivers at number 3. My concern with receivers is we don't really know at the boundary if those guys are ready to step up, right? We thought last year might be the year with not Burrows, but with CJ and Bryson, and it was inconsistent. If they don't, if it's another inconsistent year on the outside, I think the ceiling on this receiver group is a little capped, and probably the ceiling on the offense as a whole is a little capped. Now, we're going to take a quick break there. Come back, talk about who is next in my positional rankings, right? Going from the top to the bottom. Listen, we've all been there. Halftime, your face kicked in. The scoreboard isn't reflecting what you want it to reflect. You don't know if you can pull it out. You don't know if you can rise from the ashes in the pits of despair. And then you got to just breathe, Ryan. Take a breath. and say, okay, let's get back into this game. Let's pull off some bank heists and let's take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can because I will ruin you. That's right. The Smash Hit game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's Monopoly Love, but it's on the phone anytime. Tons of new boards. Play with a bunch of different people, including leaderboards to compare your progress. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with the wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. And we all know the iconic properties of Monopoly. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments. So get back out there, friends. Put on your game face and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, let's talk about what we have next. And just to recap again, we had linebackers number 1, DBs number 2, receivers number 3. Put in the comments what your list is, where you'd have these guys. Number 4, I have running back. And running back's a really interesting position to me this year because I think there is a little boom and bust with this position. There's a scenario to me where running back could probably be as high as number 2 on this list if some of these things come true. And it could also drop pretty precipitously if some of the bad things happen. But I am looking for a really good year from Chaz. I've said it a couple times. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think he is physically ready. I think he's going to be as healthy as he's been. He fits this offense. I really liked what we saw in bursts last year. I think he catches the ball better, which Longo has the ability to use and use to manipulate defenses and create more advantage situations for Chez. I really like Chez this year. And part of it is probably me just rooting like hell for him because every time you hear him talk, he's a good dude. He's revered in the locker room. You can see the respect teammates have for him. He's stuck around. He's put in the rehab work. But I also think he's talented. It's not just a feel-good story. I think there is legit upper-tier Big Ten running back talent in Chez Malusi's body. Not elite. Don't get me wrong, but that tier right below it, I think he can be very good, right? Behind him, I think, and I want to get to the freshman in a second. I think behind him, you have Tawee Walker, who I can't wait to watch play. I think he's going to be a really good number 2 in this offense. I think got him for a reason. Big, physical, tough running back to tackle. He's going to give you something different. And I think that's a big key to this running back room. When I was starting to look at it, a lot of guys can give you something different. Tawee Walker is going to give you something different. He's going to be a guy in the third quarter in October in Iowa or wherever you are, where you can just give him the ball on 3rd and 2, and he's going to hit a linebacker so hard that linebacker is going to give up his scholarship, enter the transfer portal, and become an academia guy. He's going to leave football. Tawee Walker brings a level of physicality that is unique for the running back position, and he gives you a different weapon for Phil Longo. I'm really excited about that duo. I think that duo is underrated. I think it's underrated because Tawee Walker kind of left Oklahoma in the portal, and because Chez Malusi's been hurt, I think that could be a really good duo for the Badgers. And then behind them, I think there's underrated depth with the returning guys. Like Jackson Aker was fine last year when Preston did duty for a guy who didn't have a ton of reps. Now he might be more of an H-back. He might be moved around more. I get that, but I think he can handle the ball if necessary. He's your third guy. K.D. Akimeli, I think can give you a little bit as well. Those are depth pieces that I feel fine about if they're not the number 1, the number 2 guy. And then you got the freshman. It's one of the best freshman groups of running backs that the Badgers have ever brought in. 2 4-star guys. I think Dupree and Dilon Jones can both play early. I wish they would have been here early. I wish they would have enrolled early. But running back's one of the spots. Running back, receiver. There's a couple spots where you can kind of step on the field if you have the goods and you've been well coached and you have the right mentality. You can step in the field and play pretty early as a running back. Both Dilon Jones and Dupree have that ability. I think they both have the ability. I think one of them is going to earn a role this year. Not 100% sure who. I think I love both. I'm probably a little higher in Dilon Jones. I think he's more of an all-around back. But if you already have that all-around back kind of in Chez and that thumper in Tawee, maybe Dupree's the guy because he's more of that third down scat back and get in space, catch the ball really well. I think you have 2 potential stars there. I also like Gideon Atuka. So I like the depth. Nate White is still here as well. I like the top duo. I like the depth. The downside, listen, Chez could get hurt again. The freshman could not be ready. And then you have a whole heck of a lot of problems. And if those things happen, like a lot of times freshman running backs aren't ready. Freshman players aren't ready. Now, I've talked to Dilon Jones. I've talked to Darrion Dupree's coach. Like, I think they're ready. Like, I'm not worried about that. But you just never know, right? You never know until they strap it up. So we'll see. But the downside is, if Chez gets hurt and the freshmen aren't ready, that's putting an awful lot on Tawee Walker's shoulders. And as big as those shoulders are, I'm yeah, that would be tough to see, and I think that would hamper the offense. But I got running back at number 4 because I like the mix of talent. I like the top 2 duo. I'm rooting like hell for Ches, and I love the freshman coming in. Number 5, and I actually flipped this. My original list, I had this group at number 6 or 7, and I bumped them up after thinking about it more, and I could be wrong. But again, let me know in the comments where you're at on these guys. This is just my list. That doesn't make it the right list, right? That's just my list. I have offensive line at 5. And here's the reason I bumped them up. I think we're in for a Jack Nelson kind of bump back year. Listen, the physical tools have always been there for a tackle, maybe more of a right tackle at the next level, but the physical tools for a really good college tackle, the size, the reach, uh, the footwork. It's not the greatest foot speed, but those tools have always been there. He's also got a mean streak. He's strong. Like he's really good in the run game, actually. And he was 16th in the Big Ten in Pro Football Focus for his pass blocking efficiency. I think what happened with Nelson and why some Badger fans have a bit of a sore taste in their mouth is there's untimely penalties, right? We've all seen them, the false starts, that kind of stuff. It drives you nuts. But it was year one in a system at the offensive line. I think some of that is going to go away this year as the system gets more natural for players that have been recruited to a different system and coached in different systems their entire career. I also thought he got better as the year went on. Like you look back to that Washington State game where you could point to Jack Nelson and say, you made two of the you got our quarterback killed. Like it was a terrible game for him. I thought he got better as the season went on. I think he's coming back to put NFL film up. I like the physical skills. I think he's going to be one of the best tackles in the Big Ten. I like on the other side with Malman. And then Renfro. Renfro's the key, right? If Renfro's healthy, you're suddenly taking last year's line. Well, not the entirety of it, but you're taking big portions of last year's line and you're inserting a former all-conference center into the middle of it. One thing that Brady Collins told me about Jake Renfro that always stuck out to me, Brady Collins said he's wired to be in the Big Ten. And that's what you want your linemen to be like. You want them to be wired like crazy people. I think Renfro in the middle, the tackles on the outside. I like where this line could be. Now, downside's obvious. There's no depth is a major issue here. Potentially the freshmen coming in, obviously Kevin Haywood, Colin Cubberley have both gotten a lot of raves. There's more freshmen coming in. Potentially those guys are ready to immediately step into too deep. I feel pretty good about Kevin Haywood doing that right now. Not right now, but like by the time fall comes along, as he gets another summer, another fall practice, I think he's going to be okay there. If you can go in the portal and add another veteran that can play on either side of the ball, that can give you some coverage across positions, I think that would be enormous. But depth is the big concern at offense line. Absolutely, absolutely huge concern at offense line. But if they stay healthy, I think they're going to be pretty good and potentially even really good. I really think this could be a bounce back year for the offensive line if they get a lot of injury luck, which is far from certain at that spot, right? All right, number 6, I have quarterback. Quarterback, I originally had a little higher, then I dropped it down. This is another one that can fluctuate. I'm a little worried about quarterback. Here's the good side, right? We're doing kind of a good and a bad for each spot. Again, I have at 6 on the rankings. I think we have multiple options right now. That if they both are playing pretty highly on their ability level, can bring winning traits to the position. And that's a good thing. There's been quarterback battles Wisconsin has had in the past, or there's been depth charts where Wisconsin has had in the past. And certainly depth charts that other teams have had in the past where they didn't have multiple options that you could envision a path for success for, right? I can envision a path to success for Braden Locke this year, given his skill set and potentially some growth in this offseason. And I can envision a path to success at Madison under Phil Longo for Tyler Van Dyke as well, given his NFL arm, his size, and some of his mobility. So there have been definitely times in the past at Wisconsin we have not been able to look at this depth chart and say there's multiple guys where I can envision a path to success for. The problem is you might, if you could, the downside is you could get stuck in a position where you're kind of choosing between the lesser two evils. Let's say you're taking Locke because Tyler Van Dyke's taking too many mistakes, but then Locke doesn't push the ball because he doesn't have the arm of Tyler Van Dyke. You could end up getting kind of a tragic compromise there at the quarterback position where I think we're still a year or two away from the finished product of whatever it's going to be. Now, I think Locke could be that guy. I think Locke could either this year take that starting job and not give it up for 2 more years because I think there's more to being a quarterback than just having elite NFL arm strength. And I think Locke checks a lot of those boxes, but he's got to beat out Tyler Van Dyke, and Tyler Van Dyke doesn't exactly have a history of consistency either. So I think this position could swing wildly in either direction. And right now I have him at 6 because I think that reflects the question marks around it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Come back with the three positions the two positions I have left on this team, but also the good side with them. Why do I think defensive line could be better than some people think it might be? That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. I've been using Yahoo Finance. They are a sponsor to this show. Let's just be real. Wouldn't it be great if you could see everything you had invested in from one spot, all your accounts in one place? This reminds me of an idea I had once. I called it the everything cupboard, right? Where instead of having different cupboards in a kitchen, you just have one big cupboard. You press a button like a garage door and it goes up on your everything cupboard and there's all your food. No longer am I hunting for the cinnamon Pop Tarts, which are the only Pop Tarts worth eating, by the way. Still stand on that hill. That's what Yahoo Finance is. They're the kitchen equivalent to finances. All your accounts, all your retirement information, it's all in one account, one spot to make it easy, simple. It's in one place so you can see it all. They're the number one financial destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, breaking news, original editorial perspectives. I was reading one on real estate on their website today. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. You can trust them. They know what they're doing, and they provide great content every single day. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Welcome back to Locked On Badgers. We're just ranking through all the positions where I feel they are right now. Let me know in the comments where you have it right now. Just to recap, I have linebacker at number 1, DBs at number 2, receivers at 3. Then I went running back at 4, offensive line at 5, quarterback at 6, and now we get to defensive line, which is not. I've been hard on the defensive line. I want to start with the good. I want to start with the reasons for optimism, the reasons to think that this could be a lot better than not just what I think, but what Badger fans in general think. Let's start with the high upside young talent. And again, there's ifs here, but it's not impossible for young talent that enrolls early to play a significant role. Like we saw Keanu Benton as a freshman play right away and be a big part of that defense. Ernest Willer Jr. is a guy, 4-star talent, the type of defensive lineman Wisconsin rarely gets. He physically, for a freshman, he's pretty ready. Like he could step in right away, play a real role. And if he does that, other dominoes start to fall in place. I like some of the depth on this unit, like James Thompson Jr. That dude's a man. Senior. He's been in the program for a long time, played a lot of football, stout at the point of attack. I liked what we saw of Curtis Neal last year, at LSU game towards the end. Huge stop on a 4th and 1. I think there's ability there to get underneath people. Plays with a lot of leverage. He's a little shorter, but I think he can be disruptive in both the pass game and the rush game. And behind him, I like Jamal Howard. Like there's a lot of pieces here that if you look at, you can like depth on Benton or Barton and McDonald as well, veterans that have played a lot of football. I think it's probably a unit that's better against the run than against the pass, but that's the next point I wanted to make. The linebackers, I think, should help with the pass rush. So if you can just get a defensive line that can come up, be stout at the line of scrimmage, stop the run, force the other team into 2nd and 7, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, you can cook with that, right? You can cook with that. And I think this defense line might be able to do that. So, excuse me. So I think this defense line might be able to do that. And if it happens, then the linebackers can cook and everything falls into place. The downside is there's not very many pieces you can point to and say, I know that guy's going to be a really good, like a great defense lineman in the Big Ten. The freshman might be a year away, and the upperclassmen might just be really good players that aren't great players. And it's hard to win at the highest level if there's nobody you can point to and say, I feel like he could be a great player this year, especially on the defensive line. And then the last spot, I have tight ends. So to wrap up the list, I have tight ends. I just think a lot of the talent, which I really like Booker. I really like Steck. I still like Tucker Ashcraft. I think they might be a year away still. I think this might be a year where the position is still kind of growing into its spots. I think down the road, Grant Steck down the road and Rob Booker down the road could be really, really good on this offense. Under Phil Longo, who likes using tight ends, they both have really interesting physical skill sets. They're different players, but they both are the type of players that fill prototypes that coaches are looking for, right? In Booker's case, it's the high high tier athlete that can catch passes, that can create mismatches. In Steck's case, it's the 3-down tight end who can push a defensive lineman into the center of the earth. And then on the next play, run a little bit of a crosser and take advantage of a slow middle linebacker. I like both those guys a lot. I like Tucker Ashcraft from a physicality standpoint. I just think he might be a year away. Jackson McGunna is another guy that's really interesting. The LSU transfer coming in offensively. He can catch the ball. He can move in space. How's he going to take to the system? There's nobody you point to here and you say, like, I'm really sure that guy's going to be a good starter this year. There's a lot of players that have to grow into roles. That can absolutely happen with the skill sets these guys have, but I think we need to see it. And that's why I have tight end at the bottom of this list. All right, so just to recap, we got a number 1 linebacker, number 2 DBs, number 3 receivers, number 4 running backs, 5 offensive line, 6 quarterbacks, 7 D-line, and 8 is the tight ends. Let me know in the comments what you think of that list, where you agree, where you disagree, where did you put your guys. And that is the show today on Wisconsin. Thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate y'all.